Work is more than just a way to make money. It's a big part of who we are and how we live. Back in 1944, the Declaration of Philadelphia reminded the world that labor is not a commodity. In other words, work isn't something to be bought or sold like a product. It's about dignity and human well being. Welcome to Hude Hour on Hude Network, where we break down issues within the humanitarian and development space. I am Amadine Ubewe.
And I am Jill Neze. Welcome. That same idea is at the heart of the Sustainable Development Agenda 2030 goal. Eight focuses on creating jobs, growing the economy in a fair way, and making sure everyone has decent work. In fact, the idea of decent work is included in many of the 16 global goals, all aimed at building better lives for people around the world.
Today, we're diving into the concept of promoting fair labor practices and ensuring the rights of workers. First, a look at our headlines. UK government introduces employment rights bill to boost economy. Pan-European meeting tackles mental health crisis. Ireland enacts new laws for remote and flexible working requests. Now, we'll go on a break. When we return, we'll delve further into this issue. Don't go anywhere. Now, across the globe, many workers continue to face serious risk at work. In some countries, over 10 work-related fatalities occur per 100,000 workers. And in others, non-fatal injuries are over 641 per 100,000 workers.
From 2015 to 2022, national compliance with labor rights dropped by 7%, with this decline affecting both developed and developing countries. Since 2020, these violations have become more widespread, driven by ongoing crises that are not only harming workers' rights, but also infringing on basic civil liberties.
Well, we'll see how we break it down further as the program progresses. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now let's head to our first news item of the day. The UK government has unveiled the Employment Rights Bill aimed at driving economic growth and ensuring fairness. The bill introduces sweeping reforms to modernize workplace laws, support businesses, and provide stronger protection for workers. Key provisions include removing the 2-year qualifying period for unfair dismissal protections, granting all workers these rights from day one. The bill also proposes a statutory probation period to balance employers' need for flexibility with workers' immediate rights. The legislation tackles exploitative practices such as 0 hours contracts and fire and rehire, introduces day one rights for parental and bereavement leave, and strengthens statutory sick pay by eliminating waiting periods and income thresholds. Measures to ensure workplace inclusivity and flexibility include requiring large employers to address gender pay gaps, support employees through menopause, and make flexible working the default where feasible. Protections for pregnant women and new mothers will also be bolstered. Well, that's what the UK government is on right now, going by that bill. And I think it's something that one wonders, why could this have taken so long?
Yeah.
Workers deserve to have rights. Fair labor practices are the way forward because, as we said at the beginning, work is not just about making money. We've had analysis of how long people actually spend in the workplace. Assuming it's a regular, let's say 9 to 5. 9 to 5 is usually 8 to 5 for really when you calculate transportation, perhaps even 8 to 6, thereabout. You spend a very great portion of your life, almost 1/3, if not more, in the workplace. So you do deserve to have rights within that place. And what we're seeing in the UK now are ensuring that some of the ways that were seemingly exploitative, having to wait 2 years before you cannot be unfairly dismissed or be dismissed summarily.
Yeah.
Also issues of fire and rehire, where people sack workers and then rehire them at lower,
Pay.
lower pay and lower conditions, which is also an exploitative thing. And this bill serves to resolve those issues. And again, the question might be, why wasn't this always the case? But then it's good to progress as the times do.
Yeah, I see that the bill is there to encourage a fairer work environment, workplaces, so that people can have job security. That aspect of fire and rehire, it's not really conducive for workers, and it will not really boost their productivity. So I think this bill, it's really go a long way in the lives of the workers. All right, let's move straight up to the next news item we have. A thematic meeting of the Pan European Mental Health Coalition held in Helsinki, the capital city of Finland, highlighted critical mental health challenges facing health and care workers. Stress, burnout, and moral injury are taking a heavy toll on workers, impacting patient care, safety, and healthcare system sustainability. Participants explored strategies to enhance mental and physical health well-being through improved working conditions, better job satisfaction, and fostering retention and recruitment in the sector. Aligned with the WHO European Regions Framework for Action on Health and Care Workforce 2023 to 2030, the discussions emphasized creating healthier workplaces, managing workloads, and reducing stigma around mental health to support and retain essential staff. Well, this is what we're talking about, Amadine, about the healthcare uh, of the healthcare workers.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I hope I did not confuse our audience.
No.
Yeah, so it's a very important thing for the pan European people to understand that these people, the healthcare practitioners, also need healthcare services as well because they are the front line of making sure that other people have health care services. But if theirs are being neglected, it results to stress and burnout. And when these individuals are or professionals are going through this particular phase, it becomes a problem in the healthcare system. So it's a very a right thing to do to make sure that these professionals or healthcare givers also have access to healthcare.
Indeed, I've often heard doctors when they're speaking about the oaths they swear, to help people and all of that. They also speak that there's an aspect of their training, the overall aspect of being medical professionals that includes you taking care of yourself because you can't help others if you can't help yourself.
Of course.
But that being said, what particularly interests me about this update is that it's about mental health. And the importance about this is that it's easy for people to see physical wounds, injuries, and all of that. But we see that um, it's just recently, fairly recently, in recent times, that we're starting to see that people understand that you can have injuries in your brain, you can have injuries in your psyche, and constantly having to take care of people and all of that. That's why people complain and they say some doctors seem a bit too, mechanical. I mean, someone who is exposed to so much, yes, they're rescuing, but they're also exposed to death and injuries and all of that. But for this aspect, for care workers, so there are two layers here. The fact that this is talking about mental health, where you have to worry about things you cannot see, but you have to create the working environments to enable people to do better. And on the other hand, we're talking about care workers who tend to help people with care and all of that. And people might say, what's really in that work or line of work that should require extra care? But then that's the whole point of the conversation today. Fair labor practices, ensuring that even people who are doing all kinds of work have that mental aspect, being taken seriously. You shouldn't just say, well, other people are doing harder work, those things where you equate the pains of different people to make sure someone continues in bad conditions. So I think that's one of the things to address. For now, we'll go on a quick break. When we return, we'll delve into our final news item. Afterwards, we'll delve into our conversation. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Now, workers in Ireland now have a strengthened right to request remote and flexible working under new legislation introduced by Minister Roderick O'Gorman. The law obliges employers to follow a code of practice developed by the Working Relations Commission, that's the WRC, when handling such requests. Under the new framework, workers must submit requests in writing at least 8 weeks in advance. Employers have 4 weeks to respond, extendable by another 4 weeks. Decisions must be made fairly, and employers must consider alternatives if unable to approve a request. Employees can escalate disputes to the WRC if employers fail to comply. Businesses are required to maintain records of arrangements with fines of up to €2,500 for non-compliance. The Irish Congress of Trade Unions welcomed the changes, citing benefits for work-life balance, gender equality, and economic growth. The code also provides clarity for employers, promoting a balanced approach to workplace flexibility. Well, it's an interesting one there from Ireland, and
Yeah.
it's funny to me because really what this framework is about is that it's giving people the opportunity to request to work from home or other fair working conditions. And if we're going to be completely honest and break it down, it's not the law is not mandating that the employer must give you what you ask for. The law is just telling the employer that honor, attend to this request
Yeah.
in timely manner, in humane manner, because it brings to mind that this law wouldn't exist if employers would simply treat their workers' request as legitimate, as valid, because the mindset we get from bad employers, which is not the majority, is that I'm paying you, so you don't get to ask for anything.
Yeah.
You know, that's the point. That's why you're here. Just do your work. But then
Follow the rules.
follow the rules and just, nobody really cares.
Yeah.
But there is a threshold. There is a basic level of decency and human dignity that should be afforded to everyone. Even if you are paying them $1 billion dollars or million a month, they still have the right to request. They're just asking. And basically what that framework says is that look at the requests, see if it's possible. If not, try for alternatives. Do not summarily dismiss them. Do not ignore them. Do not say no outright. And I think that's fair enough for Ireland.
You forgot to add, or let me just add it, the failure to comply, you attract fines to it.
Yes.
I think I like that aspect of
Yeah.
it because this is what you talked about exploitation
Yeah.
when you started. And I think this is a major word here. A lot of, not the majorities, but a lot of bosses, in quotes, tend to exploit their workers.
Yeah.
And it's not really, really good. So this, as a request, is a very, very huge one.
And you feel the fine is going to motivate them to do better.
I feel so because by the time this money is being gotten out or being removed from your company's income, you tend to sit up and you'll be more considerate, and you say that, okay, these people that are working for you, they're actually generating income for your company.
Indeed.
So they should be treated well as well. So I think it's a good one for Ireland, and I look forward to other countries adopting this.
Indeed,
this
indeed.
bill.
It's very simple. All we're
Yeah.
asking is that you should listen, just listen.
Yeah.
So that's how we end this segment of the program. When we return, we'll be joined by a guest in the house. He is Arinze Michael. He is a legal practitioner, legal professional, and he will be joining us to do justice to the matter at hand today. And after that, we'll take a look at our verified voices. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Every day, amazing stories of hope and tenacity unfold across the globe. On Hude Hour, we dive into these inspiring tales and discuss the vital work being done in the humanitarian and development space. Humanity has never faced a shortage of challenges, yet we rise stronger through teamwork and determination. Though these remedies are often underreported, on Hude Hour, we advocate sustainable solutions. We bring you the latest and most impactful news on how lives are being changed. We engage with young change makers and experts who provide valuable insights into relief efforts and the challenges faced by local communities through a global perspective. Join us every Wednesday by 8 a.m. on Hude Network's YouTube channel as we embark on this journey of positive change.
Hey everyone, let's face it, our world today experiences numerous challenges. And guess what? Our community isn't off the hook either. Most of the world issues are either not talked about enough or never talked about at all. But here on Timeline, we've got you covered. We dive deep into issues that affect us every day, leaving behind footprints of wisdom, knowledge, and solutions. Think of it like a roadmap that keeps you on the track for success. So buckle up, because in this new season of Timeline, we're taking another trip through the past, the present, and navigate into a more promising future. Again, we're talking solutions, people. And let's make one thing clear. This is not your average blah, blah, blah convo. This is real talk with a side of inspiration and a sprinkle of wow. I never thought about it like that. I'm your host on this impactful ride. Together, we'll tackle the tough stuff, laugh a little, and find ourselves on the path to positive change. So what are you waiting for? Season 2 of Timeline will be loaded. Let's get started. Hop in, and let's drive straight into the hearts of issues shaping our world. Let's go. Oh, one more thing. Hit that subscribe button and let's take this ride together.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is still Hude Hour on Hude Network, and we've been talking on the issue of fair labor practices, promoting them, so to speak, including workers' rights. Right now, we've been joined by a guest, which I had earlier introduced. I'm reintroducing him now. He is Michael Arinze. He's a young legal professional, and he's also an SDG advocate. He's joining us to do justice to the matter at hand. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having
You're
me.
welcome. It's good to
Thank
have
you.
you.
Thank
All
you.
right. So part of what we were saying at the earlier part of the program is that according to the UN DISA, the adherence on compliance to labor laws has dropped systematically since 2015. This is globally. So I'd just like to get your thoughts as to what changes you think are necessary to reverse this change, this trend, and also promote adherence to these laws.
All right. Thank you very much. First, I will appreciate the Hood Network for having this conversation. It's a very timely conversation, especially in the light of globalization and automation, where we have artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, all coming into play in workers' role. So now, in terms of compliance with the international standard, I would say that we need to strengthen the enforcement mechanism across the globe. For us to be able to achieve the compliance that we want, we have to first strengthen the already existing, legislation, international legislation. The International Labour Organization have to play a key role towards, seeing that the enforcement mechanism becomes more effective, because that's usually the problem. Most times, it's not the paucity of the laws, but how they are enforced. So if the global system can do more in terms of bringing the enforcement mechanism to be more effective, then we can achieve, a great deal of compliance. Meanwhile, apart from that, we should have a monitoring system where we can identify institutions, employers that are complying with these international standards and be able to reward them. And in the reverse, punish the employers that are in breach of some of these international standards. And importantly, we should be able to bring incentives for employers that most times adhere and comply to these international standards. And by doing some of these things, we will see that the compliance level will be skyrocketed.
All right. Let's talk about safety. Before we go into safety, there are scenarios where people or workers in workplaces they die due to some, crisis, and also some of them get injured, especially in these production companies or firms. What are those safety procedures or guidelines you feel like global standards that you feel that can be, given to these companies to make sure that their workers are actually working in a safe environment?
Thank you very much. Now, some industries are risk-prone industries. Industries like mining, industries like construction, and such similar industries. So, what can be done to ensure safety in these industries? Number one is, there should be a kind of uh, technological involvement in what they do. So we're in the era of artificial intelligence. We're in the era of Internet of Things. So there should be a technological monitoring of what they do, and then the workplace too should do more in terms of how it assesses how workers are doing, and then apart from these assessments, should be able to ensure that some of the standards for these companies are observed, because there are standards, there are ways that these companies should operate, but most of the times you discover they don't comply those ways. So if these companies are complying with those safety mechanisms, if we have the use of technology to detect and prevent likely damages and hazards in those workplaces, then things can be better. And then by so doing, we can reduce the kind of risks that are associated with some of these industries that are risk prone.
All right, fair enough. Maybe we can continue on that, but before that, let's talk about the balance to be struck, where people are trying to make profits, but at the same time, they have to care for workers. Um, we're still recovering to an extent 4 years after from the pandemic, and there's a lot of push for economic recovery. How do you think employers can balance this with having to ensure that their workers are doing well? Because we hear all sorts about even companies that are worth billions having poor conditions for their workers, like we've highlighted about injuries and all of that. So, what do you think are the ways that that can work,
All right.
balancing the two?
All right. Thank you very much. We have to recognize that labor is not commodity. That has been said, and that was, in fact, one of the provisions of the preamble of the International Law Organization of 1919. And while companies are trying to recover from these, economic downturn and all of that, they have to dignify human efforts, because humans are bringing in intrinsic value to the work. So the moment the companies are emphasizing mostly the profit that is being made at the expense of the workers, then we cannot achieve sustainable development. And this is why SDG Goal 8 is very important even in this discussion. Because if we are saying decent work and economic development, then two of them are tied. So we cannot have that sustainable development if these workers are not being cared for. And these companies that are, of course, in the process of recovering can, explore other means apart from just trying to reap the workers. Because if there are no workers tomorrow, if it's affecting the whole world tomorrow, then there's a problem. And then the sustainable development we are looking at, we're not achieving it. So companies should do more than just prioritizing profit. They should look towards the area of prioritizing fair hours, fair work practices, and things that will enhance productivity. Because if these workers are not, and are not balanced, maybe in their personal or all-round life, then they can't give their all to the work. And then at the end of the day, you are not even achieving what you want to achieve as an employer. So the employer should be able to go beyond just looking for profit and caring about the well-being of his workers.
All right, before you go on, I just want to add in there. In the first place, it is possible to make profits and for your workers too, because I think that's something that workers tend to think
Yeah,
that
it is very
we can't
possible.
make profit if we don't milk out every ounce of productivity till almost there's no life left. So can we start from there in the first place?
Of course, you know, we have to come to where we balance the fact that we can still make profit. In fact, we even make more profit when the workers are optimized. What do I mean? If in industries, in work industries or workplaces where you see that the well-being of the employers are being catered for, you discover that the productivity is usually high. So to me, I feel it is even an added advantage to the employer, that the well-being of the employees are being taken care of. And you see the employees giving out their best. You can give them family leave and all of that. And you see them giving out their best because they know that this industry or this employer cares so much about us. To me, I feel if there's a decent work, then there will even be more productivity, even for the employer and for the entire community.
Thank you so much for that distinction.
All right. I know this angle I want to go into is very, very interesting because it has been a very serious issue in the work environment. Let's talk about the gender pay gap. Yes, between the men and the women. First of all, we all know that women are underemployed. Even when they are employed, they don't get the same amount of money, or we like call it salary, income. With likewise the same with the male workers. So, how, in your own perspective as an SDG advocate, what are those perspective or policies you feel that you can tell the government to implement to make sure that the gap is not much or there is no gap at all? Because women, as a woman as that I am, I'm actually soliciting for them out there because women are underemployed, and even if they are employed, we get underpaid. So, what's your take on that? How can we close the gap?
Well, in bridging the gap of gender equality, especially in the workplace, I believe the government has a role to play, and the private sectors and the employers also have a role to play. So the role the government can play is bringing up policies that will, of course, cover this, gap, and not only bringing policies, because just as I said earlier, it's not about policies. Sometimes we have policies, we have legislations here and there, but you see little or no enforcement of these policies. So government should, beyond bringing policies to bridge this gap, ensure that these policies are actually implemented. And then they should be able to reward employers that are doing this and punish employers that are not, following the policies or the legislation of the government. So in the private sector too, I think they can do more in terms of working with the trade unions. Because another part of this conversation, which I would like us to also look at, is the fact that trade unions play key roles in decent work. So if trade unions can bring out certain mechanisms to be able to monitor the ratio of employment, the ratio of employment, okay. In fact, I think some of the employers are already implementing that, because you see some of the employers saying women are strongly advised to apply. So I think some of them are already doing that, but they have to increase on that. They have to do more than just that to ensure that they follow it through. So I think if we are doing things like that, then it will get to a point where this gap will actually be covered.
Well, let me ask you a personal question. Do you feel that a woman and a man should earn the same?
Well, if they are giving the same value, why shouldn't they not?
Okay.
Wait, you really put him on the spot there. But anyway, let's before we move to continue the conversation, let's talk about what you raised as an interest there. The aspect of trade unions, labor unions. What really is their part to play in all of this? And even becoming a union in the first place, there are different laws across. In some places, the government even has to, or in a lot of places, the government has to approve your union. So it's almost like we're creating a union so that we can seek for better rights. But then the people who want to seek for better rights from have to approve us coming together so that we can seek those rights. Almost like a catch-22. In some cases specifically, we can even cite the example of some academic unions here in Nigeria and some other places. So how do you think that really works in ensuring fair labor practices?
All right, before I answer that question, let me state that government is not the only employer, right? So apart from the employer, the unions that are made of, government employees, the other unions. So this issue will not arise where other unions are. But in terms of government, the greatest challenge of these labor unions are the government suppression. Because government has a way of, even though they allow you to exist, but they cripple you. And that is, in fact, one of the problems that these labor unions have. Because the purpose of creating a labor union in the first place is to empower their people to protect their interests. But the acting or the actions of the government, whether directly or indirectly, is bringing what they are doing to nothing. For instance, in some countries, which I won't like to mention names, you know, governments can use injunctions to stop labor unions from doing what they are supposed to do. That shouldn't be seen because if you deny them that right to protest, for instance, is a fundamental right. Even in Nigeria, here is a fundamental, and in most other countries, it is a fundamental right. So if you deny these labor unions these rights, then it becomes a problem. So what I think should be done is that the labor unions should be given a little more autonomy than they have because they actually do not have it, especially the ones that the government is their employer. They should be given at least certain level of autonomy because if they don't have this autonomy, they won't be able to achieve much. Governmental actors are here and there, and they are not allowed to do what they are supposed to do. At the end of the day, you see that, in fact, the negotiation table is not level. They don't have a level playing ground when they come to a negotiation table because the government is suppressing them, either through policies or through other laws and all of that. So there should be a system where these labor unions should be given a certain level of autonomy and independence so that they will be able to protect the interests of the employees, which they are supposed to protect.
All right, fair enough. So further to the questions now, the issue of informal sector. Everything we're talking about seems to have a level of structure to it where people can speak. Some of the news items we read out has legislation backing those things. But in a lot of third world countries, or let's say developing nations, pardon me, we have that the informal sector makes up a large portion of workers. So how can they be adequately included in all of these policies? Because at the end of the day, like when I put out the first question, you said that there's government and then there's private for unions. In the same vein, if we should take a proper analysis, we'll find that majority of workers are not even the ones in the government. They're usually in the private sector. In that private sector, the informal sector is a lot in developing nations. So how do we involve them in protections?
Well, to involve the informal sectors, first, we have to bring out policies, bring out laws that define the informal sector and protect their interests within the bounds of the law. Now, the informal sector, just as you said, they occupy a great percentage of general workers. And if there is no legal recognition, then most of these principles, if we are even talking about decent work, will not get to them. So one is there should be a legal recognition for the informal sectors. Now, beyond the legal recognition, there should be something like a database of these players at the informal sector, so that even when there is an incentive or there is government intervention, then it can get to these informal sectors because the problem we have is lack of data. Data, I mean, we don't have much, if you ask the country of the list of the informal sectors we have, it may be difficult to get. So what can be done is, number one, to give them that legal recognition, and then to be able to use technology to gather the database of these informal players in this informal sector and be able to bring them to a system where they can benefit from whatever is coming, whichever law is made, whichever incentive is given, or whichever other benefits the formal sectors are getting, so that they will also get. But the first one is that there should be a law recognizing the status of these informal sectors as people who are also part of the labor force. And by such recognition, all other benefits, all other incentive, all other legal protections, they can now enjoy it.
Okay, so let's come to our remote jobs now. I want to inform you that Ireland currently has passed a bill or a law now that you can actually apply like for flexibility. You can stay at home and work. You know how remote job works. Let's talk about how technology is playing a role right now and how these policies and laws can be adopted, okay, in the global sector.
Okay, when we talk about the remote workers, then we have to bring into perspective what happened a few years ago, the COVID-19 and its ripple effect. It is what has pushed, even before then, a lot of industry has gone remote, but right now, like the extent of the frequency of how a lot of jobs go into a remote system is becoming more. So what can be done, in my view, is that there should also be policies. There should also be laws that recognize remote workers as part of the labor force, worthy to be protected by our extant legislations. Then, apart from that, the remote workers, or the employers of these remote workers, there should be a standard where we monitor the number of hours, or not monitor now, but
There should be an agreement.
we promote, a fair hour for some of these guys, because some of them work across that 24/7, and that becomes a problem because that comes with a lot of challenges here and there. So if we are talking about decent work too, then we should include the remote workers, so that we are looking at the number of hours they work, the type of work they do, and all of that. So, and apart from recognizing them and protecting them under the laws, we should also be able to give a lot of credit to employers who are ensuring that even though they have remote workers, but the well-being of their remote workers are protected. So when some of these things are in place, when you reward employers that are doing well and you penalize the others that are not doing well, even though they are employing labor that is remote, then you discover that there can be a shift, there can be an adjustment for the betterment of these remote workers.
All right, so let's quickly get your thoughts on the issue of mental health of workers. Before the program started, I believe we had a conversation. So how do you think that can be involved here? Or what specifically do you think workers can do not workers, pardon me, employers can do that takes into account the mental health of their workers?
Well, the issue of mental health has become a global discourse, especially for industries like the health sector, where they have a lot of burnout. Now, what can be done is to create a kind of a work balance, a work balance where people are not always given the opportunity to focus on the job and the job alone. We should look at how these persons are faring even before giving them much of the job. So if we're able to achieve that balance, then it can go a long way in reducing the issue of mental health issues in the labor force. Also, apart from this balance, employers can do more. Employers can, for instance, check up on monitor their employees, check up on them. For some of them that are always busy and all of that, the workers are facing through, passing through different phases. So the employers should set a kind of a program where they can monitor the personal issues that these workers are doing, because the moment they are just told to do their work and you don't care so much about how they feel, their personal life, then it becomes a problem. So we should be able to strengthen workers' productivity, workers' well-being through this, constant checkup, constant, monitoring of how these people are doing.
So are you trying to say that there should be an existing relationship, a coexisting relationship between the employers and the employees?
Of course. And this relationship should go beyond mere relationship. It should be able to, be a real checkup on how these persons are doing.
Not a fake one.
Most times, if you go to certain workplaces, you discover that they have these things in principle. They have where we do this, but that is not the reality we see. So beyond those, guidelines, workplace mode of operation, and all, they should be able to actually do the thing. Because the moment you are just putting it as a theoretical part of your workplace, then it achieves nothing. So they should go beyond some of those principles they say is a workplace safety principle. They should check up on these people. They should be able to give them time, fair hours, go back to their family and check up on what is their problem. And I like what Nigeria did, I think in 2010, there was a law called the Employees Compensation Act. It's for workplace damages. They care about you. That is what an egalitarian workplace should be. It should be a place where you are not just working. Your well-being is very important. You can give you sick leave knowing that, okay, this person is sick. This person has worked so much and is sick. And by this, you can promote a better mental state for the workers in
All
this
right.
sectors.
Speaking about mental health, can we talk about the aspect of the relationship or the manner of communication between the employers and employees? Just to quickly recall an experience I witnessed once at a panel where one of the panelists, who was invited by an organizer, suggested that the company in question or the organization in question could have a swear jar. That is this little box where if someone uses certain words, abusive words, insultive words, from the boss or anybody actually, they would drop certain amounts of money in that jar. And the person who invited the panelists had to say, is that necessary? Because he had to confess that, well, sometimes I have to use words for my staff and all of that. And there, they were able to have a conversation and the staffs were saying, sir, we don't like when you talk to us like this. And they said, okay, let's do it and all of that. So is that also an aspect to consider here? Because when you talk about mental health, people assume it's just the work you are doing that is affecting your mental health. But the manner of which people talk to you, isn't that a factor too?
It is. It is a great factor. As a matter of fact, the relationship is key because the employers, they understand that there are paucity of job. People are looking for a job here and there. So they quickly threaten their employees that if you don't do this, people are ready to take up your job. And that becomes a problem. So beyond the fact that there are little jobs for people to take, the employers should be able to create a good working environment for these employees. And I've said it, that is what will create even productivity, maximum productivity in the workplace. Because the moment you do not relate so much well with your employees, their productivity will not be as high as it could have been. They won't take initiatives. They are like machines that you have to tell what to do and what not to do. But the moment you give that liberal approach to your employees, you relate with them very well, it will give so much input to your work because they can think on their own, knowing that these things will impress you and these things will even cement your relationship with them. They can take initiatives on their own. But where the employers are creating a very toxic working environment, and this is the case for many workplaces, a very toxic, even though they may pay you well, but the environment is so toxic that you just can't wait for the close of work each day. That should be the last thing that an employer should see in his workplace. So the employers now.
Sorry to cut in.
Yeah.
There are even times where the pay isn't even good and there's
The
toxicity
environment is still
persists.
toxic.
Yeah.
So just want to point that out.
Two problems.
I think
Yes.
John can
Yes,
bring it up now.
I agree with that. I agree with that. So the employers at this point should do more than just paying. They should be able to, give a decent working environment for the employees.
Let's quickly get your thoughts finally on, you talked about monitoring, and I like the fact that you've spoken more about coexistence of relationship. Okay, so let's talk about parental leave, sick pay, and workplace flexibility. Just round it up. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think if we are talking about a decent environment and a decent workplace, we should be able to prioritize these things because these things have a way of increasing the productivity of the employees. For instance, if you are given an opportunity for a parent to go home and take care of maybe a newborn or the new adopted, those things have a way of indirectly affecting your relationship with that employee. And the employee will be able to give his best, knowing that the workplace cares for him. So, when we talk about sick leave, this parental leave and all of that, they help to increase the productivity of the employee. And why you see that most employees are not as productive as they're supposed to be is because some of these things are not put in place. So if a government or any other employer wants the productivity of the employees, it must do more than just paying them. It must do more than paying them and ensure that they have a decent working environment. And a decent working environment comprises of a lot. It comprises of you caring about their well-being, their welfare, their family, and this is a part of ways where the employers can care for the family. So I actually support, and I'm even encouraging governments to make laws, that will promote these practices. Because if we have these practices, then the economic development of the country, of course, will skyrocket.
So
Alright.
we talked about parental leave. Just to round up, do you think it can also work for places that don't have that in place for the father, the male parent in it?
Well, when we talk about parental leave, we're not restricting it to the woman. There are some cases where, for instance, there has been a divorce and the man has been granted custody. So in that case, the man is responsible for taking care of the child, or maybe.
But even in cases where the man and the woman are together, don't you think the man
Well,
should
there
also?
should be. There should be. In fact, a few years ago, there was an issue as to a lot of fathers that early in the morning they leave, late at night they come in, and then there was a severance of relationship between them and the children. So I think it should not even be limited to the women only. It should also, sometimes be given to the fathers to be able to go and create that relationship, teach their children what they should know at the point they were, and then the children can grow.
Thank you so much for
Thank
that.
you.
And I think those final words there also exemplify that a proper working environment can even lead to better homes. Because
yeah.
we need the fathers to also be part
Of course.
of
Not
raising the
just the
children,
mothers.
not just mothers. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that's how we round off this program. We'll be talking to Michael Arinze. He's a legal professional and an SDG advocate. We'll be talking on the issue of promoting fair labor practices. I hope that some of these recommendations will be taken seriously and taken to the right ears so that we can see more implementation and not just a lot of talk. We'll go on a break now. When we return, we'll delve into verified voices. Stay with us. We're right back. Every day, amazing stories of hope and tenacity unfold across the globe. On Hude Hour, we dive into these inspiring tales and discuss the vital work being done in the humanitarian and development space. Humanity has never faced a shortage of challenges, yet we rise stronger through teamwork and determination. Though these remedies are often underreported, on Hude Hour, we advocate sustainable solutions. We bring you the latest and most impactful news on how lives are being changed. We engage with young change makers and experts who provide valuable insights into relief efforts and the challenges faced by local communities through a global perspective. Join us every Wednesday by 8 a.m. on Hude Network's YouTube channel as we embark on this journey of positive change.
Hey everyone, let's face it, our world today experiences numerous challenges. And guess what? Our community isn't off the hook either. Most of the world issues are either not talked about enough or never talked about at all. But here on Timeline, we've got you covered. We dive deep into issues that affect us every day, leaving behind footprints of wisdom, knowledge, and solutions. Think of it like a roadmap that keeps you on the track for success. So buckle up, because in this new season of Timeline, we're taking another trip through the past, the present, and navigate into a more promising future. Again, we're talking solutions, people. And let's make one thing clear. This is not your average blah, blah, blah convo. This is real talk with a side of inspiration and a sprinkle of wow. I never thought about it like that. I'm your host on this impactful ride. Together, we'll tackle the tough stuff, laugh a little, and find ourselves on the path to positive change. So what are you waiting for? Season 2 of Timeline will be loaded. Let's get started. Hop in and let's drive straight into the heart of issues shaping our world. Let's go. Oh, one more thing. Hit that subscribe button and let's take this ride together.
Welcome back. If you just joined us, this is still Hude hour on Hude Network, we have been talking about the issue of promoting fair labor practices and ensuring the rights of workers. We've had segments now, but now we're delving into our final segment of the day, Verified Voices, where we take a look at what the key stakeholders in the sector are saying on this particular issue. So let's start with our very first one there. Now we have from the International Labour Organization, says domestic workers are integral to our daily lives, yet they often lack the rights that many of us take for granted. It's time for change. Support the dignity of their work. We can see there's a checklist: your family, your breakfast, your dishes, your laundry, your shopping, your bathroom, your meals, your house, your parents, your car, your children, your rights. And at the bottom there, it says, we are you, but without rights. And that's what's coming from domestic workers. This part of what we spoke about when we were talking on the informal sector. Yeah. These are the people that need to be covered. And I believe we've done enough justice to know that we just need to include them within those rights by, first of all, acknowledging their existence and giving the informal sector a place amongst our laws.
Yeah, it's obvious that it's just more than pay. It's more than your salary.
Yeah.
It's deeper than that.
It's dignity.
All right, yeah. Let's move to the next verified voice that we have. Still coming from International Labour Organization, fundamental principles and rights at work and most at ILO labor standards apply to all workers, irrespective of their contractual status. They are key to ensuring #decent work for platform workers. In that, we can see a pictorial representation of people working. And also, we have lack of alternative employment opportunities, supplementing incomes, work flexibility. These are key motivations for workers to perform tasks on digital labor platforms. Well, we're still saying the same thing for individuals to have good, decent workplace environment, less troubles, okay, and less stress, which will reduce the burnout. Because when these people, individuals, are being treated right, the productivity stays at the front line.
Indeed, I think that's what employers need to learn, that toxicity doesn't increase productivity.
Of course.
It's the reverse. So let's take a look at another verified voice there. Again, from the International Labour Organization, says decent work is more than just a job. It's about respect, fairness, and empowerment. Let's strive for workplaces that prioritize workers' rights, provide equal opportunities, and promote inclusive growth. Together, we build a dignity with social justice for all, #. And we see the different, it's a short video, but this is a pictorial representation. What decent work equates to. It equates to dignity, equality, fair income, social protection, safety and health, rights, inclusion, and social justice. I think that pretty much says it all. Yeah. Again, the ILO, the authority on this, I guess we have to see a lot from them to really get the point.
All right, let's move quickly to the final news. Oh, I'm always calling it news item. The final verified voice that we have. This is coming from United Nations. Despite progress, gender equality at work remains a challenge, from unequal paychecks and gaps in the social protection to disparities in employment rates and beyond. At ILO works to close gender gaps in the labor force for a better future for all. Here in the pictorial representation, we can see a very beautiful lady there, equal or equate a wonderful man. There are no equal rights without equal opportunities. This is what I've been clamoring for, Amadine. I know you know me. I don't know, I need to put a placard on my forehead to say that I actually stand for gender equality. And we're also looking forward to ILO making sure that the gender gap, that's the paychecks and the employment rates, becomes equal, because we are all equal in the eyes of the workplace.
Indeed. Also, it's something that employers, once again, can take into account. Well, that's how we end the program for today. Do join us once again. Every Wednesday by 8 a.m., we come to you live on our YouTube channel. Once again, Hude Hour talks about the issues within the humanitarian and development space. See you next time. Bye for now. I am Amadine Ubewe.
I stand for decent work. Thank you. I'm Joan Eze. Bye for now.